Hey everybody, Bill here from the Nerd Nest, and this is another Steam Pals video. If you don't know who the Steam Pals are, we're a group of content creators that absolutely love the Steam Deck and everything that surrounds it. So this video, we're going to go month by month through each month and see what are the biggest games that came out, what are the biggest updates to SteamOS, and what are the biggest events that have happened around the Steam Deck. So if that sounds good, I think it's time that we roll that Steam Pals intro.
Thanks, Bill. My name's The Fox. I'm going to be joining my Steam Pals here. We're going to be talking about the Steam Deck month by month for 2022. I'm going to be up first because I was one of the few content creators to have the Steam Deck during the preview period, myself along with Linus Tech Tips and Gamers Nexus. So I'll be revealing a little bit what was going on with regards to January having the Steam Deck. And it was a bit of a roller coaster, very hectic at that time because SteamOS and Steam Deck were updating daily. For me, that was hectic insofar as every time an update happened, I would re-record all of my benchmarks, micro SD card load time speeds, just because I wanted to make sure that I had the most up-to-date and relevant data, but it became very monotonous because every day I was just redoing the same things. And a lot of that wasn't really changing all that much, but at the time you have to understand that during this preview period, the expectation was that Proton 7 was just around the bend, just around the corner. That came out probably mid-February, but all told, when we were supposed to actually have the original preview period was supposed to be in January. That embargo got pushed down the line just a little bit. Eventually that became that we could just reveal that we had the Steam Deck where we could show it powered off. And then a week later, we can talk about the preview data that we had with regard to the games that we were allowed to discuss. So that was pretty much what was going on there. It was a really hectic scene, constant updates. Proton 7 was still like kind of talked about and something that they were aiming for. Lots of updates happening. One funny bit that was happening with the Steam Deck at the time that we had it, still in the early days, the Rumble emulation was completely not set up. It wasn't implemented at all. As a result, the haptic engine was just at full blast. So when it rumbled, it was basically at 100% for any rumble, which was pretty hilarious and something that was patently obvious that this was not how it was going to be, because when you would do anything, the whole thing would just rattle. Which was pretty funny and comical, but then that later got patched in. And then it became something that was rather impressive considering that they are doing Rumble emulation through those little haptic engines that they have on there. So really impressive to see overall, especially with all the things to do, especially the triggers when you press down and you feel the haptic touch down for the dual stage trigger that they would have there. So it's a really neat implementation all along with what they're actually able to accomplish with that haptic engine. So Proton 7 wasn't available then, updates all the time. The embargo got pushed. It was a really hectic time. It was an absolute roller coaster. Let's go off and see what happened in February.
Thanks, Fox, and what's good, Deck Gang? I'm Richard from Fan to Deck, and I'm taking a look at February. I've got to say it was the most exciting and craziest time for covering the Steam Deck. We went from not knowing if Elden Ring would run on the Steam Deck to it actually having some advantages on deck versus the desktop version. We also went from Valve being virtually radio silent to Gabe hand-delivering Steam Decks to some lucky buyers. But I'm getting ahead of myself. As January came to a close, we were aware of a couple of YouTubers with Steam Decks. I mean, literally a couple, Linus Tech Tips and The Fox. You already heard from The Fox and what his experience was like behind the scenes, but we had no knowledge of what was going on because the embargo for the first round of media coverage was February 7th, and that media coverage was incredibly limited. In addition to Linus and The Fox, we learned that Gamers Nexus was the third and final member of the initial preview units. These three outlets gave us in-depth previews, but under some serious constraints. They were only allowed to show off 6 games, including Control, Forza, and Dead Cells, and in fact, they couldn't even show us what SteamOS looked like. A lot of us desperately wanted to see how you control TDP or even control the performance overlay, and for those details, we had to wait until February 25th, which was the release date, but it was also the day the full embargo was lifted. Between the 7th and the 25th, the slow trickle of Steam Deck information resumed. Some other outlets got their review units, but were only allowed to show the review unit powered off until the 25th. The 3 preview outlets put out a couple additional videos, and on a personal note, I was trying desperately to contact Valve in hopes that they would send me a review unit as well. One really cool thing is that during this time, on Valentine's Day actually, Valve open sourced the CAD files for the Steam Deck, and this meant that people could 3D print their own Steam Deck to get a feel for the ergonomics, and more than that, this was an opportunity to start designing accessories around the Steam Deck like skins. Likewise, Valve announced that they would be selling replacement parts through iFixit, which continued to show their dedication to the repairability of the Steam Deck. And then finally came February 25th. Technically the official release date of the Steam Deck, but exceedingly few folks actually got their hands on their Steam Decks on the 25th. That's just when Valve started shipping them. But we did get a ton of reviews. GameSpot, The Verge, Digital Foundry, IGN, Rock Paper Shotgun, CNET, and so many more all had YouTube videos and coverage on that day, and I watched every minute of every video. The reviews were all positive, but they were also quick to point out the flaws like the hidden miscompatibility and what felt like a really incomplete operating system. And one of the weirdest things to happen on release day is that there were reports on the Steam Deck subreddit of Gabe actually hand delivering his Steam Deck to someone's home. A few days later, Valve released a video of Gabe delivering Steam Decks to a number of homes, and it was such an awesome video to watch because some people had no clue who this was delivering their package, and others were so excited that they were virtually speechless. The excitement from there was absolutely palpable, and now it was time for us to play the waiting game. For that, we move into March.
Hey guys, Trick here. I hope you're having a good one. Come March of 22, Steam Decks finally started to ship out slowly to the community. In fact, so many people were chomping at the bit to get a shipping update that many in the community developed calculators for estimating their Steam Deck's time of arrival. The accuracy of these tools was sometimes questionable. Still, Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4 gangs were created, and the infighting began. Just kidding, but there was so much eagerness to get our hands on our Steam Deck. If you headed over to the Steam Deck subreddit, shipping, unboxing, and gaming mega threads started to pop up all over the place, and the community was just eating it up. With many eagerly waiting to get their hands finally on their deck, we continued to see a slow trickle of user reviews coming on the web. A common thing among them, the deck was unapproachable, unpolished, incomplete, and just not ready. Many outlets were impressed with the hardware's potential, but the software was problematic at the best of times. This of course would get sorted out in due time, and these software bugs wouldn't prevent Steam Deckers from proclaiming the potential of the hardware, and the hype just continued to grow. For me, the coolest update that came in March was the availability of Windows drivers for our Steam Deck. To be fair, the drivers were extremely rough, with LTT and others rightfully labeling them as a hard pass.
And Linux actually manages to squeeze more out of the hardware than Windows.
It's not even close. It's not even...
Like, Linux just ran away from Windows. It was a bloodbath. On the Steam Deck, it was just annihilation.
However, I had a different take on the update, expressing optimism about how well the deck could perform with Windows under the hood. Granted, Windows on the Steam Deck is considered blasphemy amongst the Steam pals, so head on over to my channel to see just how well Windows can perform on the Steam Deck.
Thanks, Turk. Deck Wizard here. April marked 1 month since the Steam Deck's release, and demand for the device was very high, with many players itching to get their hands on one. Even if you ordered 15 minutes after the window of pre-orders had opened, many were still waiting for their email from Valve, letting them know that their Steam Deck was preparing to ship. For those of us that did have a Steam Deck, Valve continued to deliver updates for SteamOS, which contained new features and improvements to dual trackpad typing for the on-screen keyboard, accessible via the Steam and X buttons in desktop and gaming mode. This provides users with another method of typing aside from the touchscreen, D-pad, and analog. In addition, the offline experience was greatly improved, and users were no longer required to restart Steam whenever entering and exiting between online and offline, which was a welcome improvement for sure. Another exciting feature released at the time was lock screens. These are accessible for configuration by pressing the Steam button in gaming mode, accessing settings, and scrolling down to security, where we are provided with the ability to set up a number-based pin, which appears whenever we press the power button to turn on or put the deck into standby mode, before showing the login screen, and whenever we switch to desktop mode. Finally, in April, we were no longer limited to just Windows 10 and could now install Windows 11 due to Valve's BIOS update enabling TPM so users like myself could enjoy this latest Windows operating system on the Steam Deck to play games like Fortnite, Warzone 2 and Destiny 2, which unfortunately are unsupported on SteamOS due to their anti-cheats. With April out of the way, let's hand over to Timo from Deckverse to see what the month of May had in store for the Steam Deck.
Thanks, Viz. Hey, what's up? Timo from Deckverse here, and I'm joining my fellow Steam pals to cover the month of May. I don't want to undersell all the fancy stuff everyone else is covering. Instead, I'm really thankful to finally manage to contribute as well. Although, in my opinion, May was the most important month for the Deck family overall, at least performance-wise. Not only did Valve introduce per-game performance profiles, which let you have everything you set up in the quick action menu while playing to a preset bound to that specific title, but May was also the month in which the big SteamOS 3.2 released. Back then, Valve introduced a refresh rate slider that lets players adjust the refresh rate on the fly for every game. What sounds kinda dull on paper changed everything. While the default is still 60Hz with frame rate caps at 15, 30 and 60 FPS, you are now able to go all the way down to 40Hz. You might ask why I would consider this an upgrade. At 40Hz and an FPS cap of 40, you can leverage something we are calling the Golden 40. To give you an idea of what all this fuss is about, imagine having a near 60 feeling with massively reduced input latency and a much more visually fluid playback, while only adding 10 FPS more workload to the Deck's APU. You simply have to believe me here, or you could watch an older video of mine where I tried to comprehensively explain this mathematical and technical trick in detail. Aside from all of that, an adjusted fan curve was also introduced with SteamOS 3.2, which gave you an overall quieter experience due to a more responsive set of fan speeds. Especially in 2D and indie games, this was such a blessing for your ears. Man, in hindsight, it's truly mind-blowing what Valve delivered in only the very first months of this amazing device was released. But that's not all, and there's much more to come. For now, let's see what Michael has in store for you.
June 2022 for the Steam Deck? That should be easy, we live in an AI-enhanced society now. Oh. Well, let's try then. Arguably the biggest news that happened in June 2022 for the Steam Deck was the doubling of their production pipelines. Pre-orders were going crazy on day one, and even being 15 minutes late or not being able to finalize your order because Valve servers were getting hammered meant you might have to wait an extra quarter or two to be able to join the Steam Deck Club. June changed a lot of estimated deliveries for the better. People starting to move up whole quarters in the waiting line, and the queue cleared up a little. Otherwise, 2 games showed up that proved to work really well on the Steam Deck. First we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, a nostalgia-filled beat-em-up that reminded fans, old and new, of the arcade Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles days. Fun fact, over here in Germany they couldn't be called Ninja Turtles because the regulation bodies that be didn't really like marketing ninjas towards kids. For us, they were the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. The other one was Neon White, a fresh first-person speedrunning game that had people competing in their friends list for personal bests. It turned out to be a Game of the Year contender for many. And it looked and ran pretty well on Steam Deck, especially with the gyro-enhanced controls. So that was June. Over to the next one. What happened in July?
Hello, I am Scorp, and July was a pretty slow month in the Steam Deck calendar, but throughout the month, Valve would release several OS and client updates, fixing a variety of bugs and quality of life improvements such as UI scaling for external displays. They were also laying down the groundwork for future expansions into new territories by adding language support for Chinese, Japanese, and Korean keyboards. July also saw the release of beloved cat simulator Stray, which would go on to win the Steam Award for most innovative gameplay. And finally, at the end of July, Valve promised to fulfill every single pre-existing Steam Deck order by the end of the year, so just in time for Santa's birthday. So over to you, Games Revealed.
Okay, I'm James and I'm handling August, and it was a great month. Let's just say Valve outdid themselves, and this is probably one of their top months in production because they had hit 5,000 verified and playable games that were available on the Steam Deck. Now, there were more than 5,000 that you could play. That's just what they had verified or had fixed. We've even doubled it to 10,000 within the last 7 to 8 months. So you know that they're doing a good job over there. Then on top of that, they came out with their first top played games on the Steam Deck with Vampire Survivors, Cult of the Lamb, Elden Ring, Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered, Stardew Valley, No Man's Sky, Hades Multiverse, The Elder Scrolls V, Monster Hunter Rise. And I mean, I don't think Vampire Survivors is going anywhere. It's been top dog for a while, so great list. All the games are great to go out and play, and they're perfect for the deck. Then on top of that, they ramped up production from July. So July, they started ramping up that production and releasing more and more to people that reserved. In August, they even took it a step further and got even more out during that Monday email. Now, if you remember, you know, it was Mondays and Thursdays that we were excited for. It was like Christmas for us. So that is what came out in August for Steam Deck news for last year. So with that, thank you guys for watching me, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.
Thanks, Games Revealed. 2022 was truly the year of the Steam Deck. While the Steam Deck had a major presence at every gaming convention, none were as big as their presence at the Tokyo Game Show 2022. The Tokyo Game Show is one of the biggest gaming conventions, basically equivalent to the Asian region version of E3 and Gamescom. Valve and Komodo went all out for the Steam Deck exhibit, featuring a giant Steam Deck on display. On the show floor, they had multiple different demo units to try out the Steam Deck, as well as multiple different exhibits showcasing the various use cases with the Steam Deck. You can see such exhibits as using a fight stick with the Steam Deck, or, you know, using a Steam Deck as just a normal computer. There was a ton of coverage from Japanese outlets in regards to the Steam Deck, as the Steam Deck was some sort of alien foreign device. It seemed both the average gamer as well as publications such as Famitsu were really impressed with the Steam Deck itself. It also helped that other publishers showcase their PC versions of games on the Steam Deck, most notably Sega with Persona 5 Royal. Valve's presence at TGS gave Japan a taste of the Steam Deck. This also showed that Valve was very serious about moving into the Asian region, given that they were not only releasing in Japan, but also Taiwan, Hong Kong, and South Korea. There are quite a few games that release from Japanese studios that never get PC releases. My favorite example, of course, being Vanillaware. My hope is that exposing the Japanese to the Steam Deck, as well as making the Steam Deck popular, will make some of these developers port their games to PC. Speaking of which, Valve also hosted a sort of Next Fest for Tokyo Game Show demos, giving us some of that Tokyo Game Show goodness from the comfort of our own house. There were truly hundreds of demos, just like a regular Next Fest. I like the idea of Valve coinciding these pseudo Next Fests with real-world events going on. In that case, Tokyo Game Show. I'm looking forward to see what Valve has cooked up for Tokyo Game Show 2023. Now that September is over, it's time to wake up and see what happens in October with our newest Steam pal.
In October, after some delays, Valve finally released this thing, the official Steam Deck dock. It was, and still is, more expensive than most of its alternatives, but comes with the tightest integration to SteamOS and an official charger. At the same time, Valve also announced that there would be no more waiting needed when you pre-order the Steam Deck. If you only got your Steam Deck recently, you might not know this, but for the first few months when you ordered Valve's handheld, you did not immediately get your deck, but instead were assigned a spot in the queue and had to wait, sometimes up for several weeks, before you got an email telling you you can now order your deck. The thing with these emails is that you only had 72 hours to complete your order and pay for your deck, and if you missed that window, you would lose your spot in the queue and had to wait for several weeks again. Now, of course, no one of us knew when to expect that email. We only knew Valve sent them out every Monday and every Thursday at more or less the same time. So us early adopters, every Monday and every Thursday, spent our time refreshing our email inboxes, waiting for the mail to drop while looking at the subreddit to see if anybody else has gotten theirs first. Thankfully, this is now a thing of the past, and when you buy a Steam Deck nowadays, you'll just get it in under 1 week. And with that, on to the next month.
Hey everybody, Bill from the Nerd Nest. I know you thought after the intro you were done with me, but I'm back. You can't get rid of me that easy. Alright, in November of 2022, Valve made a huge announcement where they were partnering with Komodo in order to bring the Steam Deck to new territories for the very first time. You see, when the Steam Deck launched, it was restricted to America, parts of Europe, and I think that was pretty much it. Also in November, Valve won the Golden Joystick Also, November and December are kind of award seasons, and Valve won the Golden Joystick for the best new hardware in gaming, which is awesome. On top of that, Valve announced the beta for SteamOS 3.4, which was a huge upgrade to the Steam Deck, and Ubisoft finally said, okay, we tried, but we're back on Steam. All right, that's it for November. On to December.
Hey everyone, CryoBite33 here, finishing out the year with the month of December.
Starting out the month, The Verge did an interview with two of the most prominent Steam Deck developers. During the interview, Valve reaffirmed that they're very committed to iterative hardware improvements, like easier battery replaceability and better fan acoustics, even in lieu of a full Steam Deck 2. They also expressed interest in a new Steam controller and a new generation of Steam machines. Shortly after that interview, the Steam Deck began shipping to Asia in the countries of Japan, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Taiwan through the service Komodo. It's not clear how many units have sold since Valve doesn't share sales numbers, but I've personally noticed a large increase in viewership from Asia, so I'd say that the rollout has made an impact. Next, SteamOS 3.4 was released to stable right before Christmas. It featured a massive update to the Arch packaging that SteamOS is built on, including numerous performance improvements and stability fixes. SteamOS 3.4 also added the option to allow screen tearing and run trim on your drives, something that I was very happy to see. Lastly, right before the end of the year, Valve announced Steam Replay, which was an awesome way to recap which games you played and on what devices. More than a few of us were surprised at how much time we logged on our decks, which is truly a testament of how great of a device it is.
And that rounds out the year of 2022. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked this cooperative forum content, then make sure to check out the other Steam Pals videos. And if you liked anybody here, then make sure to check out their channel too. Everyone here makes great Steam Deck content. Until next time.